We've got an interview here. We're going to be interviewing the author of the Little Red Book. We'll be interviewing Coach Santos out of Stockton, California. So thank you for spending a few minutes with us. You're at the right place at the right time. You will get something out of this. You will get inspired for your own inspiration. So with that said, let's welcome the interview. Just 6 questions, so it's going to go fairly quick. Pay attention, take notes. The first question that we have is, Santos, I want you to tell us about your childhood. Tell me about your upbringing. What happened when you were a little chap? My childhood, wow, there's so much to say here. Let's just say that my child was filled with lots of lows and a few highs. I came from Puerto Rico. I was born in Puerto Rico, 66. Cuomo, my mom and dad and my brother and I, eventually we migrated into Hartford, Connecticut. And that's where it all began. The fearful experiences, the insecurities. I experienced a lot of domestic violence, not just in my own personal home, but outside of the home also. We had family members that would come in and out. I remember as a child, they were not good influences. And one in particular was not a very good influence at all. My mom was always in and out of the hospitals, bruises, cuts, hits to the face. So there was this relationship, there was this tumultuous relationship between my mother and my father. How it survived for the period it did, it was only God's grace. Because I remember getting in the wagon, the Falcon. I remember getting in the Pontiac. I remember my father making suicidal threats at us. I don't know, he would get upset at my mom. I don't know if it was just my mom's quietness that used to get him. So we experienced, and of course my dad was a heavy drinker also. So I would experience him having these epileptic attacks, cutting his wrists. My dad was more on the depressive side. And then he would mix medicines that he would get from his doctors. I created an elaborate survival system of some kind that I look over, and there's still remnants of it in my life today. Helped me feel secure. That's what helped me find environment. I experimented with a lot of drugs very early on. And problem gambling started out as rolling dice with the older men in the neighborhood. Fights would break out and there would be fake dice. And I'm like the little runt of the litter, I guess you can call me. And that's where I don't think I won any money rolling dice, but that's where I got my beginnings, along with the alcohol at the age of 8 or 9, 10, drinking the alcohol, experimenting with drugs like cocaine and microdots and different types of things like that. Even heroin. At 18, I enlisted. Somehow I managed to get into the Navy. They actually lied to me. They told me they were going to place me in a certain specific job area. They didn't. So they conned me to get into the Navy. The Marine recruiters weren't there. I was supposed to see them. And the relationships that I've had over the years have not been good relationships. The female relationships that I had early on during those teen years were not good. I didn't understand what relationships were. I didn't know who I was. As a child, I didn't know who I was. I was lost. 18, I'm off. Ended up in California, and I've been in California ever since. Here's my next question for Santos. Well, actually, he did talk about his childhood. How early did you start experimenting? Told us it was very, very early on, 8, 9, 10 years of age. Wow. It's truly by God's grace that we're even here. When did it become worse? When did your gambling addiction become worse? Oh, thank you for that. When did it get worse? I think it got worse as I started generating more income. I believe that it really got bad for me right before 2014. It really started getting right around there up until probably about 2016 or so, 2017. But 2014 was a major pivot in my life. I started making more money. When I got out of the military in 93, I had been in a bad relationship, deceived into a relationship that went completely sour. So after I got out of the military, I was in the reserves, still before 1990. And I went, I was in a relationship. Things were going really bad. My alcohol problem expanded. I started doing drugs really bad. We're talking about smoking cocaine and hanging out with the wrong people. When I got out of the military, it was almost like the borders expanded, and a lot of what was being held back basically just kind of got released. It looks like we may have to do a second part to this, so there'll probably be a second video. So that's when it got worse. It got worse when I was making more money. I was not really going to church anymore. I was out of the program. I had gotten myself in a rehabilitation program. My life had gotten so bad, or out of control, I should say, out of control and disorganized. The worst time for me has been right up around 2014, 2015, 2016. And I'm glad that I made it through that that was an experience. I learned from it. There's a lot of opportunities within that difficult, dark period. Now I know it. So I can share that with people that may be going through it also. Kind of interesting. Santos, what happened in 2014? Tell us a little bit about that experience that you went through that was, you call in your book and in other videos that I've watched, a blessing in disguise. 2014, when I look back now, 2014 was not an ugly year for me. It was actually a blessing in disguise. It was a door that was closing, but it became an open door for me. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just thought my whole world was crumbling. We got kicked out of our home, house that we were renting. My children were fairly small. We ended up in shelters for probably about 6 months. I lost a job prior to that, a company that I had been with for almost 10 and a half years. I got caught up with religion even after getting out of the church. And I still believe this is the truth. We are going through turmoil in this world. I know that. That's a fact. I got caught up with a philosophy, and I really believed that the end of the world was going to be sometime. I fell for all of that. My head was messed up. I was not doing well.